Hey, I'm Bobby Leach. I'm with the Times Weekly newspaper. I'm here with Kelly Turner, mayoral candidate and longtime alderman, and welcome and thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule, especially leading up to the election, to talk with our readers.
Oh, happy to do it, Bobby. As usual, I mean, I read your stuff all the time, and it's I'm honored to be asked.
You know, let's just dive right into it and talk a little bit about the development of Lockport. And, you know, there's been a lot of great successes in Lockport over the last, 4 to 8 years. And, of course, you've had a hand in a lot of that growth. How do you envision the growth of Lockport moving forward? Retail and office, small businesses, and building that tax base to help, generate tax revenue for the village.
Well, a brief history. Back in the 90s, I was an alderman from 1995 to 2003. And back in the 90s, Lockport concentrated heavily on infrastructure development to what was going to be I-355. And so we built pipelines, we built sewer, we made the developers put in oversized pipelines that they didn't need, but we needed them for beyond their development to the tollway. So when we did that, we were ready, and when the Walmart came in, we were ready for them. They need water and sewer. Every business needs water and sewer. Target, Home Depot, they came in. Unfortunately, the recession hit. The developer went bankrupt, and right now, Bank of America is sitting on that property. And yes, they'd love to get rid of it, but Target still has an option on it. So there's a few things that have to be worked out, and it's sad that it hasn't been worked out. One of the things, though, that has happened in just the last 2 years was that there was a pipeline, a water and sewer pipeline project that was built to the north of 159th along 355. And that pipeline actually sat on the shelf for 10 years. And the city didn't do anything from about 2003 until we put it in the budget 2 years ago. It just sat, and every business that looked at the area said, well, that's great, but you don't have any water and sewer, so we can't build anything here. We were surprised that it was on the shelf for that long. And so what happened was, in 2011, I proposed a bond. And I said we could, go with the old city council's plan, the previous one, that said we'll only do $1 million a year in infrastructure, or we could do a bond and kickstart things immediately. We needed road repairs desperately. We needed infrastructure repair desperately, and we needed to build that pipeline. We put that in the budget. We then passed a $10 million bond, and we got things rolling in a hurry. In 2012, we were able to do $9.6 million in infrastructure construction. That included road resurfacing, which has happened all over Lockport. For instance, the west side of Lockport, which had been ignored for years, finally got road resurfacing. There's still a lot that needs to be done. In the old part of town, you've got roads that have water mains underneath them, and we need to replace those water mains. But the most prudent thing to do is to do the water mains and the roads at the same time. And we're going to do that in the future projects, now that we've started going. What also happened, though, was the ML Realty pipeline. Now, I call it ML Realty because that's the company that was behind the development that was kick-started by that. And the development is called Heritage Crossing, and it's 228 acres, and when it's completed, it'll be 2.7 million square feet under roof. Now, that includes everything from high-tech businesses to office to you name it, some warehousing, but a lot of jobs, a lot of revenue for the city of Lockport. Because ML Realty has come in, because they felt very comfortable dealing with Lockport, and because Lockport went out and built that pipeline, they're very happy. Other developments are coming in. There's 2 developments that are dovetailing off of the ML Realty project. And one, we have Ron Repos from Homer Tree Service, which is a very successful company, is looking at developing. We have another development to the north that's also dovetailing off of that, and we're also doing water and infrastructure to those developments to get it done. As I said, there were developments that looked in that area in the past, but there was no water and sewer, so you can't do anything without it. So because of that, we've got other businesses that are coming. 2 years ago, if you looked at 159th Street, it kind of looked desolate. I mean, we had Kmart that was closed. We had other businesses that had closed. Now, if you look at 159th Street, things are picked up quite a bit. And we had a Popeyes that closed. We have a new restaurant in there. We have other restaurants that are coming to town, and we're getting the development kick-started. And Lockport is really looking to have a great future.
Talk a little bit too about how important those tax revenues are, because are tax revenues growing for the city, or have they remained stagnant due to the economy? And how tough is that on the budget when you start talking about budget process?
Bobby, I'm glad you brought that up, because in the last two budgets, we cut the budget. We cut out superfluous things that were in the budget. We cut out, which a lot of cities do. They'll leave, laughingly called slush funds, where they say we need money and they'll say, oh, it's in the budget. Well, we cut those out and we cut the budget, and we for 2011 and 2012 we froze the tax levy, so there was no increase in Lockport taxes because of that. Now, over those last 2 years, we still had a reserve, which we have to have, and we also have revenue growth. We do have revenue growth because of new businesses, and because of building the pipeline, et cetera, and because of the atmosphere in Lockport that revenues are going up, tax revenues are going up. So therefore, the citizens aren't then encumbered with taxes. And the whole idea of developing that area and getting pipelines out to 355 was to build a tax base, not just shopping, but a tax base, so that it would relieve the taxes on the people of Lockport. That's the whole idea of this. The whole idea is not just to bring shopping, not just to bring restaurants, but to bring tax revenue to Lockport, so that it's easier on the people of Lockport and our taxes go down. And that's what we're trying to do. In the last 2 years, we've been fighting to lower the water rates. The water rates are based on a $57 million project list. That $57 million project list included two very large projects that were not needed. One of the projects was a $25 million tank and well project in the downtown, and also filtering two wells in Lockport that were not in compliance with the EPA. We bought in, when we got elected, we bought in the engineering firm that actually designed our water system, Robinson Engineering. Now, Robinson has been with us all along. I mean, they've been doing projects all along. It's not anything new. We just brought them in, and the mayor asked them to look at the downtown projects. Robinson looked at the downtown projects and then came up with a plan, and that plan does not include that $25 million in the downtown, because Lockport's water system is designed on a hill, and it's gravity feed. Actually, the Romans came up with that. That's nothing new. And because of pressure reducing valves, if we didn't have those, we'd be blowing up dishwashers in the downtown. So because of that, those were not needed. What we needed was to redo the 4-inch water mains in the downtown, which we have a plan to do that now, and that's going to start construction soon. That will help in fire safety, and it will alleviate any need for any water towers and wells. The other thing was the two wells that were not in compliance. The old city council wanted to spend $4 million to filter those wells. It was not needed. What happened was the old water operator and the old engineering firm had a well 11, that had been damaged, and it was only putting out 350 gallons per minute. Robinson Engineering went in, assessed the well. We've repaired the well. That well now puts out 1,200 gallons per minute, and we capped the two wells, which saved the $4 million. The EPA agrees with our project. By the way, you cannot do anything in a water system without the EPA agreeing to it. And if you think the EPA is a pushover, you're sadly mistaken. They're not. The EPA looks at everything. They look at water flow, fire prevention, reserves, you name it, and water quality. Our water quality is not the best. I'll address that in a minute. But what we're looking at then is that out of a $57 million project list, we cut $29 million out of it, which leaves $28 million for reconstruction and repair of our water system. And that's important. The water rates went up 70% based on the $57 million number. Well, since we've cut out half of that, water rates did not have to go up as much as they did, and we could cut that. If I'm elected mayor, I will cut the water rates. It's easy. The EPA agrees with us, and because of the EPA's backing on this, we can have lower water rates. Now, water quality in Lockport. Water quality in Lockport, we do not have. It's not like opening up the faucet and Hinkley and Schmidt water comes out. What happened in Lockport is in the early 1990s, Lockport was operating off of what were called deep wells. Those deep wells had water that had far less mineral content, far less rust content, and the only problem it had was very, very small particulates of radium. Now, we had people in Lockport that lived well into their 90s drinking that water. We did not have high cancer rates. And so what happened is that the EPA in the late 90s decided to change how they viewed that aquifer. That aquifer, which an aquifer is a water source that's underground, and this one went all the way to Michigan. Anyway, they said that we're not going to allow the radium in the water. You have to go to the shallow aquifer. Well, when we went to the shallow aquifer, immediately mineral levels skyrocketed, rust skyrocketed, but we were under orders from the EPA. Used to be that even on the new wells in the new subdivisions, we would mix those with the deep water wells, and you'd get better water. But that's the problem with water quality in Lockport, and the EPA, it squarely rests on the shoulder of the EPA. Now, we can look at in the future of massive softening and that kind of stuff, but that still costs a lot of money. And basically, people that soften their water in Lockport, you do get better quality water then. But even in Chicago, you still see a lot of people that filter their water and drink bottled water. So even Chicago water, as much as it's talked about, is not perfect. And if we had gone to Chicago water, our bills would have skyrocketed higher than they have. And even you look at Homer Township, they're trying desperately to order a company to be sold to them, which, we were warned about that a long time ago and had a referendum in '96, and that referendum said no. So we're gonna face that in the future, but but there's no sense paying more for water of this quality when the quality of the water is not going to go up. So that's why I believe that the water bills will and should be cut, and we still have enough money for infrastructure repairs, and we will look at in the future of how to solve the mineral content of the water and the rust content.
Speak a little bit about crime control, crime in Lockport. It's gone up, it's gone down, it's gone up, it's gone down, but right now it's on a down. So speak a little bit about that. I mean, a lot of recent tragedies in the news nationwide. Security is always an issue and is becoming more and more of an issue on a daily basis. How well prepared do you believe that the city of Lockport is in terms of crime prevention and public safety?
As an alderman and all aldermen, we get reports all the time whenever a crime happens in Lockport. We've had several crimes that have made the newspapers recently, and the Lockport police have nabbed the perpetrators, and also surrounding police have nabbed perpetrators. So as far as that goes, our police department is pretty well equipped to handle this. Not only that, but all police departments are linked together. So in other words, if a local police department needs assistance, the state police are there, and the federal authorities are there also to quickly jump in if any technical help is needed. There's been talk in the past, did we hire enough police? Yes, we have hired enough police, and the chief feels that we have enough police, and that if police want overtime, it is available. You have to understand that when you hire a police officer, you hire him for life, and it's not a inexpensive thing to do. Crime in Lockport is down, and it's going down. The crime stats over the last couple of years have been on a downward trend, not an upward trend. So our police department is doing a good job of patrolling the streets and keeping us safe. It's also up to the homeowner, too. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can practice. There was a group that was going through and stealing from cars. The cars were all open. Lock your doors. I mean, it's a lot of times it's crimes of opportunity. And so, I mean, that's common sense. Everybody knows that anyway. I'm not telling anybody anything new. So, but protect yourself and take some common sense things and steps, and you'll be fine. But as far as hiring other police officers, we're in good shape. One alderman is called for hiring more police officers. He's a former police officer, and they always want to hire more police officers. So, but it comes down to, can we afford it? Do we need it? We have to look at that. Are we just hiring police officers to write more traffic tickets? Nobody likes that. Getting into enforcement, when we came in 2 years ago, one of the things that we ran on was to get rid of stoplight cameras. We did. Once we got rid of the stoplight cameras, 90% of the people did not want stoplight cameras. We're not the only town that's gotten rid of them. LA got rid of theirs, Los Angeles. Bolingbrook has no stoplight cameras. Because stoplight cameras were for revenue, they weren't for safety. We still, even when we had stoplight cameras, we still had a T-bone accident. And they always said that if you put stoplight cameras in, you won't have those. We still had them. So it was a revenue generator. There was that's been offset because we got rid of the incentive that was given to developers to sell more houses. Well, the one thing Lockport schools don't really need is more houses. We've got our Lockport school population in it is now actually starting to go down. And when school populations go down, that means that class sizes get smaller, and that means that education is better. Just building more and more houses, a lot of cities do that, but they do that for what are called tap-on fees. Tap-on fees are kind of like the person that says, I must have more money because I have more checks. Tap-on fees are something that are a one-time money that comes to a city. It's made because it's a fee for when you build your house for tapping on the sewers and water, and it's usually, we call them tap-on fees, but it's basically a tax on new houses. And once it's gone, it's gone. Now, houses are a break-even in cities, and because of that, houses, they don't net anything. They're not like a business that comes in. Senior developments tend to net money to cities because there's no children involved. And with no children involved, they don't fill up the schools. So that's something that happens too. So that's.
Speak a little bit too. I want to talk about. Speaking of public works, last year, I don't know what to call it—a tornado, a microburst, or this or that. I don't know what it was, but just speak about some of those things that have taken place under your leadership, where you've been impressed by the way. I know you and I talked last summer about how quickly they were out there and how much significant damage was out there to that storm and down trees, down power lines, and how the city came together and really cleaned it up pretty quick. I mean, isn't that indicative of the condition of the city's public works and public safety, able to coordinate something like that, on a dime? Yes.
When we came in, there were, shall we say, there was a shakeup of city personnel. The city engineer left. The city engineer's tenure had problems when under the old city engineer there was a whole housing development that did not have a bond. That eventually cost the city $100,000, as I understand it. And that happened when I wasn't on the city council, so I don't have all the facts on it. But that was one of the problems. There was other problems that went on. The head of public works also left the city, and there was other issues with him. He left, and also the water operator left. And the water operator was in charge when well 11 broke and went down from its capacity of 1,200 gallons a minute to 350. So what we did was we brought in new people to do the jobs. We already had an assistant engineer, and she was the one that was doing most of the bond work anyway. We also bought back Robinson Engineering, who designed our water system, who had been very comfortable with our system and knew what was going on. And because of that, one thing that happened immediately was, and everybody will notice it from last summer, there was no watering ban. We were one of the few cities that had no watering ban during the worst drought in a long time. So that was a vast improvement. And the reason is because we took Joe Finley, who had been the virtual head of the water department for 20 years. He is now head of public works. We also took Joe Cronin, who has been with our city for a long time, knows the city, and is not somebody coming in new from another town that has to find the bathrooms and get used to things. These guys came in, and we made immediate changes. The city was resurfacing its own roads. and some people said that the quality of that work was questionable. And we also felt that why should the city resurface the roads? Because if you bring on more employees to resurface the roads, you live with those employees forever. When you bring in contractors to resurface the roads, they get resurfaced in a hurry by professionals that do it all the time. Boom, the job's done, they're gone. That's it. No lifetime employees. That was the reasoning for that. Because of the new leadership that we brought in, when the microburst happened, and I mean it was devastating. Lockport was out. I was without power for 3 days. My wife and I stuck it out like most people of Lockport did. It was not pleasant. The temperature was very hot, and all we had was running water, thanks to our water department, and thanks to in the past buying generators to keep that operation going. But they did jump in, and they immediately jumped in. They went to other cities. They said, "We need your help." The other cities came in, and Homer Tree Service came in on a large scale. So we had the capacity to knock that out, get that back up and running in conjunction with Commonwealth Edison, who did a great job, and we got back up and running. And I guess the only good aspect out of it is if you had any loose limbs, they're gone now. But the city came in, and they're to be commended, and they worked nonstop, and that was that's something that I think most people appreciated. And again, we have a very professional crew in there now, and we have a water system that's back up and running very well, and we have a public works section that's doing a great job, and the new leadership that's in there now is a no-nonsense leadership. And our old city administrator, Tim Schloniger, who left to go to Algonquin, got a better deal, and that happens a lot too, where cities are flush with money and they pay people more. But anyway, and our new city administrator, Frank Kaler, is a great guy. He's been around, had a lot of experience, good man. But with the crew that we have now in there, I think that most people can feel confident that if something happens, it gets taken care of. Before we made the changes, there was 700 work orders that were back ordered that had not been done, and Joe Cronin took care of those. Those are all done. Any work orders that come in now, they're handled precipitously, and then people and the job is done. They don't sit for months, and that was another problem with the old way the Public Works Department was run. So that's in control. The people that are running it are in control. They're polite to deal with, and they're professional, and they know the city. A lot of times when you give them an address, they know who lives there, and that's really what you want in a town like Lockport.
You know, teamwork is obviously significant when things like that happen. You know, I don't know that the public feels that there's a lot of teamwork on the city council board. You know, especially over the last couple of years, it's been a lot of heated arguments back and forth, and divisiveness on that board. How important, as mayor, if you're elected mayor, how important will it be to mend bridges and try to get everybody on the city council to work together to attack these problems facing all communities?
Well, that's a fair question. I mean, it's. When we came in 2 years ago and realized that we had a majority, I talked with the mayor, and he knew what was going on. And for the first few months, the mayor and I met on a regular basis. If any new developer came to town, we had joint meetings, and things actually went rather well. I mean, it was cordial, and I complimented the mayor on jobs that he was doing. And it's not that we wanted to be adversarial. Everybody wants Lockport to be a better town. We did have issues with a couple of aldermen that were, shall I say, in charge before we were. And they made some decisions that we didn't agree with. And like a lot of people in politics, if you change what they had done, they don't like it. And they wanted to keep in the $29 million that we took out of the water project list. The only problem with that is this, and I've been told by people that said that, well, shouldn't you have compromised? If there's a mistake, you shouldn't compromise. If there's something that you know isn't needed, you shouldn't compromise in this aspect. The people of Lockport have to pay for that compromise. Say we compromise 50% on the $29 million. That means that the people of Lockport would have had to pay $14.5 million that they didn't need to. That's money that could be spent somewhere else. and to local businesses to attract business. If businesses are doing great, other businesses come in. When government comes in and government says, we're going to do this plan, and it's not correct, all they're doing is soaking up money that could be used somewhere else. Government doesn't create jobs. Only business creates jobs. Government costs. And that's kind of where the argument comes from. I met with Alderman Colorelli early on, and Alderman Colorelli, I'll be polite, expressed no interest in working with us at all. The only person that has worked with us has been Bob Peretta, and he worked with us on the bond. He worked with us to get the votes for a supermajority. We wanted to go for a larger bond. He originally wanted to go for $8 million. We wanted to go for 15. He said he would settle for 10, and we went with that. We could have done more, but that's, things being what they were. That's how it shook out. So argument in government. If argument in government makes your water bills lower, if argument in government makes government more efficient, I'm for it. If we're complacent, there's a lot of city councils that are filled with go along, get along aldermen, and if you've ever watched our city council, even the people on our side, if you want to call it a side, don't always agree, and we've had some spirited arguments, and it's kind of like if you have a good idea and it holds up to the argument, then the good idea wins. Consequently, if the quote-unquote minority had come to us and said, you know what, maybe you guys do have some good ideas, let's work together, that would have made things a lot easier. It probably would have given me a few less gray hairs, and but that never happened. We never heard from them. All that we ever heard from them was very long-winded speeches, and long-winded speeches don't get you anything. What people really want is they want their sewers fixed, they want their water system to work fine, they want the city to work. And that's basically it. And we're arguing on that sense. We take no contributions from vendors with the city. We take no nothing like that in our campaigns. We're not interested in it. If Robinson Engineering starts charging us too much money, I've told them they're gone. That's it. I'm not interested in anybody getting rich off the city of Lockport. I'm interested in companies that come in and do a good job. That's it. If they don't do a good job, they're gone. If employees don't do a good job, they're gone. And that's the way a business runs. Cities can run as a quasi-business. I mean, cities really shouldn't make a profit. Cities should, but they should run efficiently, and that's our goal. And there's been arguments over that, and there's been a spirited debate over that. But I'll give everybody a little bit of a history lesson. When we had our revolution, at the height of the revolution, less than 50% of America was for it. So I mean, it's you have throughout history, you have government that they can be diametrically opposed, and sometimes you just have to argue it out. But I think that by what we've done, and the arbitrator on our water system has been the EPA. The EPA agreeing with us and saying, yes, this is the plan that we agree with. That's it. You can't do anything risky with water because the EPA will not let you. They will sue you, they will take it to court, and they'll win. So you have to do things that they agree with and that work, and we've done that.
My final question, Alderman Turner. What made you want to run as mayor? I mean, you've been in the trenches now, and sometimes it's a thankless job. Government is a thankless job, and whether people are for you or against you, you're going to hear it both ways. What motivated you to run as mayor, and if you're elected, what do you hope to accomplish as mayor in your first term?
Well, the motivation. I ran 4 years ago, and I lost by 2 votes. Now, a lot of people would say, well, aren't you bitter about that? And actually, I came away with kind of a different perspective. We had a recount. You get a 25% recount automatically if you want one. And we went into that with 3 votes down, and we picked up 1. And the attorneys said, yes, we could spend $40,000 and maybe win. And I thought to myself, well, if you win because the attorneys get, you go to court, and the attorneys win because they're arguing over hanging chads or whatever, do you really win? Or do people say that the attorneys put you in? I didn't want to go in and say the attorneys put me in. I called up Dev Trivedi from the parking lot of the courthouse, or the county clerk's office, and I told him, I said, Dev, I'm not going to drag you through the courts. Good luck. You've won. You're the mayor. 2 years later, I ran for alderman, and I ran with a team, and our team was elected, and we knocked out some incumbents, and we knocked out some people that didn't agree with us, and our team came in, and we were the majority. As a team, we started to work, and we've gotten things done that 4 years ago nobody dreamed of. Nobody dreamed of Heritage Crossing, that huge development that's coming in. If you look in the last 2 years, again, 159th Street is really picking up. We've got older businesses that were shells that are now new, vibrant businesses that are coming in, and I want to continue that. The fight on water rates, I want to continue that. It's something that we've started, and we're going to finish it. And we're going to finish it and make Lockport a better town. In my humble opinion, I think we will. And I think we're going to do that because we've worked hard. We've studied the issues. When we did the budgets for 2 years, we did something that most city councils never did. The Lockport City Council used to just leave it up to the staff, and then the staff would say, oh yeah, this is a good budget, and they'd never read it. We actually read it. Once we read the budgets, once we found out where we could cut, we did, and we did not have to raise taxes. We want to keep it on that same line, and that same line of success. That's why I want to run for mayor, or that's why I am running for mayor, and that's why I want to be the mayor. And I promise to do a great job, and I think we've done a good job in the last 2 years. And I'll say this to you in Lockport, I'll make you proud. Thank you.
Well, Alderman, thank you for taking some time to spell out some of the positions that you have and talking about the progress of Lockport. And we wish you the best of luck, come April here. I know the election's right around the corner, and you've got a lot of doors to knock on. So thank you for spending time with us, and, we'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.